Services utilizes a team of tax planners and specialized attorneys to stand behind their work. Earn more, keep more with Capital Preservation Services. We welcome in NFL insider Mike Detillier, WWL Radio TV New Orleans. Mike joins us on the Miller Lite guest line. Mike, let's start with Drew Brees. When do you expect him to announce that he's officially retired?
That's a good question. Because of some salary cap implications, you wonder if he'll officially do it after June 1st, because of the fact that, you can sort of manipulate the cap a little bit that way and break that $22 million up into like 11 this year and 11 the following year. I always sort of thought that, it would probably happen right after the Super Bowl. But, I think the Saints know, certainly, that he's not coming back. But the official part of it, because of the fact that you can do, a little bit of, erasing of the numbers. Well, not erasing, but manipulating of the numbers, it may not be officially done until June. Because you are allowed that one player to be cut after June 1st. So you could literally sign him to a $1 million contract and then cut him after June 1st.
Interesting. Okay.
So listen, with the money manipulation that they're going to have to do this year, because that's always part of every NFL team. I mean, come on, you're juggling the books a little bit. And the Saints have done it over the last 4 years, and trying to get another Super Bowl. Now you sort of to a point where you're going to have to pay the piper. So you're going to have to make some tough decisions. I'd be really shocked if somebody like Trey Hendrickson returned. Trey's going to get a lot of money from somewhere else. Sheldon Rankins, he's going to get a lot of money somewhere else. Jared Cook has just not played up to the amount of money that they're paying him. It'll be interesting to see what happens with Marcus Williams and Jackrabbit, Janoris Jenkins. Because Jackrabbit's contract, I think, is in that $12 to $14 million a year range. You're not going to pay him that. So do you extend that out? Williams is a guy I know, coaching staff-wise, they want him back on this football team. So we'll see what happens there, and how they can maneuver money. And there's always leeway. In talking to Mickey and Kai Harley, who really does a lot of these contracts for the Saints, they always write these little codicils that you can sort of turn what would be money into bonus money and kind of throw it on the back end. So for the next 2 years, the salary cap is not going to be really good. So, it's coming out of the 2021 and 2022 seasons. And so they've got a little bit of work to be done there. And what happens at quarterback? I think that to me, still has to be addressed. You cannot convince me that Jameis Winston or Taysom Hill is the guy for this football team. You have to go outside of the organization. It doesn't really matter what Sean says. So I got coaches in my family. I hate to break everybody this news, but sometimes they don't tell you the truth. Sometimes they lie. Listen, I got a guy on the bayou that I grew up with. Now, he don't lie to me because, I tell him he can lie to somebody else. But, sometimes what he says, I know he's not telling the truth about things, but it is what it is. Coaches sometimes have to say what they have to say. They're like a politician in a lot of ways. In a lot of ways, like one.
Mike Detillier on the Out of Bounds show. How much pressure does it put on Sean Payton to nail this, knowing what Tampa Bay nailed it this year and got to the Super Bowl with the free agent QB?
Yeah, I think it puts certainly pressure. And he always says that as long as I'm here, that window's not going to be closed. I'm always playing for a championship. But this is something, and I said it a few times and said it last night again on Second Guess. Years ago, Hank Stram was part of the WWL crew, and that he did a weekly show. And it was him and Ditka at one time. They both had nights, and so we worked together. And one of the things Hanks told me was, he said, Mike, I'm just telling you, the worst decision you can make is at that quarterback position when you miss. And he said, sometimes you can con yourself. Sometimes you say it enough to the media that you start believing it, that the guy is in the room that can eventually lead you. And he said, when Lenny Dawson got old for me, Lenny had won me an AFL championship in the early 60s. He brought me to Super Bowl I. We won Super Bowl IV. But as Lenny got older, we had Mike Livingston, who had won games for us. But he said, we had a pretty good supporting cast around him. When those guys started to get older and Lenny got older, I had kind of conned myself that Mike could lead us. And he said, I had some loyalty to Mike. He said, I found out there's only one Lenny Dawson. And he said, what it got me? Fired. He said, I got fired in Kansas City. So he said, I spent a year off of football, and man, I got 3 or 4 teams wanting me to come back, and I signed up with the Saints, and I signed for one reason, Archie Manning. He said, I could envision Archie on that podium holding the Lombardi Trophy. He said, I could easily envision that at this time. So he says, the usual Stram luck. He said, first year I don't have Archie at all. He hurts his elbow. He misses the entire season. And the second season, he misses part of the early season because of the elbow. And he said he was just starting to round into form, and we lose to Tampa Bay. And he said that was it. The owner was impatient, not with the team, but with me. And I got fired again because of the quarterback situation. And he said it wasn't Archie's fault. He got hurt. But he said I was playing Bobby Douglas and Bobby Scott. They didn't win me much. So he said, what happens the next 2 years? Archie has the 2 best seasons he's ever had in his professional career with the Saints. Best 2 seasons. But he said I wasn't there, and our defense, he said, really didn't have the personnel to back up the offense. So he said, again, you make that bad choice at quarterback, you stuck in football purgatory. Some of those guys can win you some games, but he said, at the end, it's all about championships. It's all about winning and getting deep into the playoffs and playing on Super Bowl Sunday. And he said, you can con yourself. And, they got people that, because Sean has said it so much time, the guys in the room, the next successor to Drew's in the room, Taysom Hill, they got people that actually believe that.
Oh, good
and
grief.
I want Taysom. I want Taysom on my football team. I think he's a tremendous football player. Special teams, running out of that joker formation, receiver, I don't call it RPO. It's or run option. But I want him there. But I don't want him as my starting quarterback.
No.
And, people say, he's young, he's learning. No, he's a
30.
31-year-old quarterback. Okay? So how much more does he have to learn?
Well, he's on the back nine. I mean, most players are at that age. I know because he's out of BYU, it's a little bit different deal. But
and Jameis,
it's too much money, Mike, too. I mean, I know Sean can do what he wants because he's won and he's a phenomenal coach. But you're not getting that ROI. Some of the plays situationally are fine. But it's $16 million too much for what you're getting from Taysom, in my opinion.
Well, you look at it, if you combine him and Jameis, it works out.
Yeah, that's true.
Financially. No, with Jameis, you got what you got. I think you got an erratic quarterback. That's always going to be, one game he looks great, the other game he's inconsistent. And she passed away this summer, but she was good friends with me. We were in some movie adventure, so to speak, together. Gay Culverhouse, her dad, Hugh Culverhouse, owned the Bucks. He was the original owner. She was the president of the Bucks at one time and stayed involved in league affairs. And Gay would always tell me, Mike, let me tell you about Jameis. We had him already. I said, what do you mean? She said, we had him. He's Vinny Testaverde all over again. She said, Vinny was here. He was inconsistent, and he threw as many interceptions as he threw touchdowns. She said, when we cut him loose, he started for 6 other teams in the NFL. He played until his mid-40s. She said he was a big guy, rocket arm, could put the ball in tight windows, but there's something about accuracy skills and judgment on when you throw the football that you can't teach. It's a skill that either you have or you don't. And she said, I understand Sean thinks he can lay his hands on him and, like, bring him to football lords, but it ain't going to happen because us and 6 other teams thought we could do it with Testaverde, and it didn't work out. And she said, what you got is Vinny Testaverde all over again with Jameis, and that he'll have a long career in the NFL, and he'll dazzle you with that arm talent, and he can rifle it. But she said, his inconsistent nature is always going to be there. And I watched Jameis, okay. He played against the 49ers when Drew went down. He was all over the board. But people got intrigued because of that little trick play he did against the Bucs, and he got it complete. Okay, that's one throw. And we see it in practice, the practices we were allowed to go to. He was at best a 55% completion guy in practice. Tell you the story.
Mike,
so you better go out and get one.
Right. All right. So do you think they go get a free agent on the market, or Sean goes through the draft for the Saints?
Last week he made an interesting comment, and it's very similar to Stram. It was that the biggest draft mistakes I've seen made, and this is up into recent years, because Hank's been gone a few years, he said, is that quarterback. So you can get kind of fall in love with a guy in practice and don't really watch some of the things he does in a game. Because, no pro coach got a lot of time to be watching, college film. He said, during the season, you're not watching them on TV. You're preparing for your game. I would think to go out and get your veteran quarterback. If it's Matt Stafford, who you're going to have some competition, if that's the case. And financially, you could throw some dummy years on his contract and kind of stretch that out, and you could make it work. I think he'd be a great fit for this football team. But I've heard all the stupidity I could possibly hear about Stafford, is that he's injury-prone. Okay, you're not playing flag football in your backyard, and you're not Al Bundy at Polk High. But from 2011 all the way to 2019, he started 16 games for Detroit every year. And then he hurts his back, has back surgery. He starts 8. What did he do this year? He started all 16 games. So, okay, yeah, he's beat up. What quarterback wouldn't? Behind that offensive line, you got no running game. I think in this offense, and with his ability to spin it, he would really fit well, in this offense. I'm convinced of that. And it would cost you a first-round pick plus because of where you're picking. Okay, you're picking 28th. You basically kind of got an early second-round pick there. So we would have to kick in something else to the Lions to make that work. But he does have a connection, since the head coach was on this staff. Dan Campbell was on this staff. And Joe Lombardi left to go to the Chargers, but Joe coached Stafford in Detroit.
So Stafford could be in play. Maybe Jimmy G. I'm not sure what's going to happen in San Francisco, and I don't know the financials.
Here's my deal. Would you take Jimmy thinking about this? Okay, the Patriots, they knew Brady wasn't going to play forever there, and that was friction. One way or another, that was friction. So they traded him to San Francisco. Kyle Shanahan, what is he known for? His ability to groom quarterbacks, right? Mm-hmm. Matt Ryan's best year was under Kyle Shanahan. If Kyle Shanahan's willing to get rid of him, what makes you think, okay, Belichick couldn't rehab him and get him to a certain level, and now Shanahan's getting rid of him? Man, the red flags sort of go up for me here. And I think Jimmy's talented. I think he's a little distracted on certain things, but I would be very leery of that. The interesting part is Aaron Rodgers. And that Aaron sort of got Green Bay by the teriyaki here. That, in essence, he could say, trade me or I quit. And, okay, and there is no doubt, and we talked about it at draft time, when you pick a guy in the first round and he's playing your position, you know it's just a matter of time before they're going to get rid of you. And Aaron's got a prickly personality to begin with. And I think him and Sean would get along pretty good because they both like that. Now, could you make that work because you're in the same conference? Would be interesting. But I think there's going to be some veteran movement here, and maybe even guys that we don't think kind of getting moved around this year. Now, because it looks as though Deshaun Watson is moving himself in the direction of going to the Jets. And because of their early first-round pick, it makes sense. And it's probably going to end up being 3 first-round picks when it's all over with. Here's the thing, and I do remember it, that when Sam Darnold came out, man, one of his biggest backers was Sean Payton. Sean waved the flag pretty good for Sam Darnold and saying, man, you know, if I had my choice, he'd be the guy I'd want of this class. So there's a lot of variables there with Sean, but they're not in the room. So if it's a veteran like Stafford, if it's to go out the deal for Sam Darnold, I'm interested to see what happens in Green Bay. Just because I think with Rodgers, have you come to a point where you can make this work with him and Matt LaFleur and the Packer organization? It seems to be we're almost to the brink of that, of maybe something happening that you might have to just get rid of him.
This is fascinating. I mean, the veteran QB movement around the league are kind of musical chairs. Maybe not. We've never seen this. I don't know. We'll see what Roethlisberger does in Pittsburgh. But Mike's all right. So Sam Darnold, for our listeners, out of Southern Cal, goes up to the Jets. We know how dysfunctional they are. You'd have to believe Sean can get everything and then some out of him. Maybe Matthew Stafford, maybe somebody else. I think Mike's thinking there could be even more movement than we think. But would Sean go through the draft and do that deal, or would you rather get someone that's already played, several years? What do you think about Stafford? I mean, Detroit's been dysfunctional my whole life. So, if you drop Stafford at Baltimore, New Orleans, places that are well run,
Indianapolis.
Right. Yes.
Think about that, because now the deck has been cleared. No, you don't have Phillip Rivers. Okay, Jacoby Brissett, he'll be a career backup. I think he'd be nice to have because of the fact I could turn to him if my quarterback's got to miss multiple games, and I think come in and do a good job for me. But as a starter, you kind of know what you're getting here. Indy would seem to be the most likely place because it seems to be that, the airport, they've cleared the runway for him to come in. And they've got a lot of cap space that they can come in to do it. San Francisco has got some cap space. It's not a glowing recommendation of Garoppolo, at the end of the year press conference. When you heard Shanahan and Lynch talk, it wasn't like, oh, yeah, he's our guy for multiple years. They seem to dance around that all over the place. So I think other than New Orleans, certainly Indy, San Francisco, and Washington. Okay, who's going to be the quarterback there? You suspect that it's over for Alex Smith, that he'll probably walk away from the game. They've cut loose Dwayne Haskins. Now, Tyler, he did a nice job as a mop-up guy, but come on, he's a backup quarterback in this league. Would Ron go in that direction? Because he's got some receivers there and probably would add a veteran that could really help him in a division that's really weak to win it, that they wanted this year, in the NFC East. So it's interesting how I think you'll see more veteran movement of quarterbacks than you might think. And look what happened with Carolina. Okay, they paid Teddy a ton of money to go there. And then after 1 year, Matt Rule says, he's not long term. We going somewhere else. Either we're going to get a veteran or we're going to draft one.
Wow. This is going to be insanity.
Joe Brady stays for at least 1 year, so you would have that part of it in place. So, man, you can sort of see the checkers being moved all over the table here, and you're going to probably have 5 quarterbacks going round one. So that's the other part of it.
Oh, man. All right. I'd still love to see Dak to the Saints, but that's not going to happen. So, darn it. So he'd actually have some good people around him, like Sean and others. We'll see what Sean does. It sounds like things could happen in free agency at the quarterback position for the Saints. We'll see what play Sean and Loomis and the crew make. Mike Detillier, Saints Insider, WWL Radio TV New Orleans, at Mike Detillier on Twitter. He joined us on the Miller Lite guest line. Mike, that was fantastic. We'll cover the Super Bowl next week. Thank you, buddy.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Mike Detillier, my man, WWL Radio TV New Orleans on the Out of Bounds show. Blake, sounds like Mike seems to believe that Sean Payton's going to try to get into the free agent market and see who he can bring in that's already played, who's older and a veteran and already played football in the NFL. We've got Sam Darnold, Matthew Stafford, Aaron Rodgers, and we may have more. We may have Jimmy G, and who knows what else.
Assuming that Aaron Rodgers would cost me a king's ransom because the Packers probably aren't super interested in moving him. I mean, he's under contract for a couple more years, and so it would have to be a trade. I think, obviously, Stafford and the Lions are mutually looking to part ways, so that price might be lower. I mean, is Aaron Rodgers better than Matthew Stafford? Yes, but it seems less plausible. To me, if I'm the Saints, I go all in on getting Matt Stafford to New Orleans and not to Indianapolis.
Okay.
He's your best shot to me. Realistic.
Yeah. I'd give up 3 first-round picks for Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, but the Saints, I don't know. I mean, it's like the next 3 years of their draft. That'd be about what they'd have to do because they don't have the stockpiled picks the way some teams do.
True. And I would have to look at what they have this year, next year, and the next. The Out of Bounds show is brought to you by Tito's Vodka. You can enjoy a Tito's Vodka Bloody Mary and some brunch at Bravo this weekend. And you can find it at Briarwood Wine and Spirits, 4949 Old Canton Road. Nate and the crew have a fantastic selection of bourbon and wine and all your wine and spirits at Briarwood Wine and Spirits, 4949 Old Canton Road.